Thank you for joining me today. My name's Nathan Garner. I'm the Technical Pre-Sales and Project Manager here at Dynamic CCTV. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Hikvision ANPR Solutions. So we're going to take a look at a standalone ANPR camera that can be used for barrier control and just taking captures of number plates as they are detected by the camera. We're also going to take a quick look at the use of an ANPR camera with an I-series MVR. And then we're going to move on to the more advanced solutions using HikCentral to manage your ANPR cameras, and then also HikCentral parking management solutions as well. And then we'll take a brief look at the TCM ANPR cameras, which are the higher end ANPR cameras that are available as well. So for each section, we've got a few slides to go through, and then there's a live demo. So I've broken up the live demos throughout the webinar, just so it's not death by PowerPoint. Different slides that we've got there. So if you have any questions, if you put them in the Q&A section, and if they're on the slide that I'm on at the time, I will try and answer those as best I can while we're going through the webinar, but we will also have a full Q&A session right at the end as well, or you can contact me directly. My contact details are on screen there as well. So with the Hikvision ANPR cameras, if you've ever used them before, they were originally used in the 4-line ANPR cameras, and then they released a P model, and now we're up to the IDS 7-line ANPR cameras, which have deep in mind analytics to help with false alerts being detected, and to also allow you to be able to take a capture on a vehicle even if the plate's been obscured, or if the actual license plate itself has been removed. It will still take a capture of the vehicle and display it as no plate detected on the actual system itself. So it will filter those out. The IDS 2CD7A26G0, these are the standard ANPR cameras that we stock and sell. So these come in a 2.8 to 12mm lens and an 8 to 32mm lens on these cameras, depending on the detection distance that you're needing. And these generally used for car parks, entrances to buildings, barrier control. There's quite a few different options that you can use with the cameras, and they do support 2 lanes of coverage with the IDS 7A26G0 camera. So it does actually support both. ANPR cameras themselves do work in both the day and in night mode as well. There are some settings that you do need to change for accurate nighttime detections, because the plates do white out with the IR reflection. So you do have to adjust the exposure settings on the camera, which can darken the overall image. But you can adjust a gain slider that we'll take a look at on our ANPR camera. So I know it is something that we do get asked quite frequently about with the nighttime detections from the cameras. So with the standalone ANPR cameras, you can upload an allow/block list. So this is done using an Excel sheet that you would export from the web front end of the camera. And what you would then do is manually enter the license plate numbers into the list and set them to either be an allow list or a block list within the Excel sheet. You'd then save that and then re-upload it to the camera. It's a similar solution when you are using the ANPR cameras with an MVR as well. You do still need to manually export the Excel sheet, add in your plates, and then re-upload it. It's not the best if you're on a site where they're having to update the lists every day or every week. It can be quite time consuming, but we're going to look at another solution which is a lot easier to adjust the actual plate lists for the vehicles, and a lot easier to manage from the actual system itself. So with this ANPR camera, you can trigger a barrier or a gate using the actual physical alarm outputs on the camera itself. So you'd wire those into your gate or your barrier, and you can then configure the alarm output to be triggered when vehicles that are on the allow list are detected by the camera, and that can then trigger the alarm output on the camera itself, which would then trigger the barrier or gate. You can also set it so if you have a block list, so unwanted vehicles added to the camera, you can have that trigger an email to be sent from the camera itself to warn that that vehicle's being detected on site, or you can actually configure it to trigger an alarm output if that vehicle's been detected as well. Depending on what is needed for the site, there is a few different variations on what you can configure for the linkage actions when the vehicles are detected by the camera itself. In order to save the vehicles, you can insert an SD card into the camera itself, and this will save captures of when the vehicle's been detected. It will only save a picture of the actual vehicle. It won't save a video clip. If you need to be able to have a short video clip of the vehicle being detected, then you'd need to use the ANPR camera in conjunction with an NVR or DVR in order to be able to have that short video clip recorded when the vehicle is detected. So with the ANPR cameras, all the configuration is done through the web front end of the camera itself, logging in on a web browser into the IP address of the camera, which we are going to take a look at in the next 5 minutes or so to get onto that as well. With the cameras, there's a couple of different working modes. So these can be entrance and exit, they can be road, depending on what's needed. With the entrance and exit, this is what you'd set it to if it's an entrance or an exit to a car park, or if it's being used for barrier control with the system as well. So you can see we've got our left border and our right border set up. And we now also have on the newer 7-line cameras, there's also a detection line. So the vehicle needs to pass through this detection line in order to trigger the system on there. So if they only come in at the top here, they won't actually trigger the ANPR camera itself. So there is that additional function that's been added in post to the original 4-line ANPR cameras that were originally released on those. This is a screenshot of the actual allow and block list that you'd set up when you export the file from the camera or the recorder. So you'd need to manually go in and enter in your plates for each of the vehicles that you want to add in. There isn't much in the way of ability to add in any additional information to this list to link with the actual number plates. It is only the plate number, the actual license plate itself, what group it's in, whether it's a block list or an allow list. And then you've also got the expiry date as well. And this is when the plate will expire on the system and will no longer be able to open the barrier, for example, if that was being triggered on the allow list by the system. It is also worth mentioning with the exported Excel sheets not to change any of the formatting in the cells. If the format's been changed or you've copied the license plates from another document into the Excel sheet without clearing the formatting, it can cause issues when the Excel sheet is then uploaded to the camera. So you've got to make sure when you copy and paste in license plates from another document into this, that you use clear formatting, or when you're actually editing this document, you don't change any of the formatting in there, you're just inputting the actual data into the cells for the actual license plates. So once the Excel sheet's been uploaded to the camera, it does actually show you the plate number that you've entered, as well as whether or not it's on the blacklist or whitelist, and then also the time that it was uploaded. So with the Excel sheets, you can input time parameters. So when the license plate will expire on the system, you can put those dates into the Excel sheet, but you can put in more complex time parameters for those. So within the configuration for the actual linkage actions for the camera, you have to set your arming schedule for your different vehicle lists, so your white list, black list, and then an others list. So your others list would be any vehicles that are detected that are on neither of the lists that you've created within the Excel sheet. You then set up your linkage method, so whether or not you want to upload or take a picture to memory card, and whether or not you want to trigger an alarm output. So this can be trigger alarm output 1, alarm output 2. Within that, the Notify Surveillance Center, so this is to notify through to the likes of IVMS 4200 or through to the HikCentral VMS platform as well on there. So what I'll do now is I'll just load up the web front end of one of our ANPR cameras here. So this is the web front end of one of the ANPR cameras that is mounted on our main building, which is looking at our main entrance into the car park for Dynamic. So what we can do is if we go into our configuration tab along the top, we've got our normal options like we would on a standard camera, but then we have road traffic right at the bottom there. If we go into that, this is where we would set up our detection areas for the ANPR camera. There is different mounting angles and mounting heights that are needed depending on the scenario that you're using the camera in, which I will send out our mounting and configuration guide after this webinar. I'll send an email out with that attached to the email as well. So you can see there's different modes that we can set this to. We can set it to city, street, entrance and exit, and this adjusts the actual recognition of the camera itself. So a city street would work at a faster rate detecting vehicles, but it would be less accurate in those detections. And entrance and exit is a slow detection method, but is more accurate in the detections and with the algorithms. So for slow moving traffic, you'd normally have that set to entrance and exit with those. You've also got your detection line as well. So this is a new feature within the 7-line ANPR cameras. So you actually set this line as to where the vehicle needs to cross in order to be able to trigger the ANPR side of things. So this gives you greater control on those detections with the ANPR cameras on these. We go into our arming schedule. So this is where we can set up our different triggers from the camera itself. So it is more limited than using one of the VMS platforms, but within this we can set it to link through to one of the VMSs, or we can have it set to upload to a FTP server or to a memory card within this menu as well. And we can also set it to trigger the alarm output. And this is what you'd use to trigger a barrier or an electric gate on site. This is how you'd link that through in there. You can see we can set different linkages depending on the plate list. So we're not just limited to having the allow list trigger an alarm output, we could also have the blacklist trigger another alarm output, such as a siren or warning sign if we wanted to. We could also set that up. We've also got a few different options within the picture settings, and so we can adjust the picture size and the picture quality. When using an MVR, sometimes you do need to lower the picture quality of the actual captures that are sent through. Generally, we'd usually set this down to 20 when linking through to a DVR or NVR, and that just makes it more reliable when sending the information from the camera itself to the actual DVR or NVR that you're using with the camera. That also being said, when using an NVR, it's best to do all the configuration on the NVR itself. It can conflict with the camera if it's set up on both. So the settings for the lines and the detection area are set up on the NVR if you're using that with the system. The only thing that you'd set up on the web front end of the camera is the exposure settings for night and also your detection line for the actual plate as well. You can also set in your device number, your camera number and your camera info within the screen as well. And then if we go into our block list and allow list, this is where we can manually export the Excel sheet. So if I click on export here and then click on open, you can then see it's actually opened that Excel sheet. But I can enable editing, and if I put in a third plate, and enter in my license plate and set this to group 1. Now I'm going to resave this. I'm just going to save it onto my desktop. So that's been saved. And then in order to upload that back into the camera, I've got to browse to the location that it's been saved in, select the file, and then click on import. And that will import the list to the ANPR camera, so you can see it's now updated with my license plate there, and it's put me on the allow list for that. So you can use the allow list and block list through using Excel with the ANPR cameras. You just got to be careful to make sure you don't change any of the formatting for the cells, or it can prevent it from being able to upload back to the camera itself. We've also got the real-time LPR result, so this will actually give us real-time plate detections as they've come in through the camera. So this will give us the last 20 detections that have been through the actual camera itself. So this is great for debugging and finding out whether or not where the issue lies, and to make sure the camera is actually reading the plates correctly within the system as well. If I go into image, you can see our mountain scenario at the top set to road. By default, this is set to normal, and this is where you can have issues with your nighttime detections. So for the best nighttime detections, you always want to go into the image settings, go into your mountain scenario and make sure that's set to road. What this will do is it will automatically adjust the exposure times and the gain levels for the actual camera itself. Now, usually when you enable road traffic, it will default set it to 1/1000 for the exposure settings, and that will darken the overall image at night, so you can't really use it as an overview camera. You will only see something when a vehicle is actually there on site or being detected by the camera. But you can go in and adjust the gain level, so you can adjust this to brighten up the overall image during nighttime detections. The best way to do this is to actually log into the camera at night when there is a vehicle there, so you can adjust the actual image settings and get the best balance between the detecting the plates and giving yourself an overall image as well within those. Nilesh has asked, what are the mounting parameters? So for the mounting parameters, I will send over a PDF that we've got for the actual mounting of the cameras, because there's specific tilt angles that the plate needs to be within in order to be able to detect plates correctly. So I will attach those onto the email that I send out after this webinar for them. So now what we can do is, if we go back to our slides, so that's just a look at the standalone ANPR camera and what you can do with uploading the allow and block list through the camera itself. And you can also do the same with an MVR. If you do use the ANPR camera with an MVR such as the 𝐂𝐸𝐕 unit, you can actually get a real-time result down the live view side of the screen on the local MVR itself. If it's then added into IVMS 4200, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, which is the free software that's available from Hikvision, it would actually allow you to search back for plates that have been detected. It doesn't have as many of the advanced features that we're going to look at now with HikCentral, but for smaller installs, or when you're only needing one person to be able to look at the vehicles and be able to search back, the IVMS 4200 with the ANPR camera and a recorder is a workable solution for those. But for sites where we need to be able to look at multiple users, or that they need to have multiple ANPR lists or deploy out to several different sites remotely, or they just want an easier way to actually manage those lists, then we need to look at using the HikCentral ANPR solution instead of the free IVMS. So with the benefits of using HikCentral, you can have multiple users that are able to edit the allow and block lists. You can actually set up several different lists. So you could have VIP customers set up, you can have people that have broken in before, or that have shoplifted or caused issues on site, anything like that. You can split up into different plate lists. If it's being used on a large system and you have lots of remote sites added into HikCentral, you can actually apply those plate lists across multiple sites. And I have actually tested our ANPR camera with 10 separate lists linked through HikCentral for the actual linkage actions and for the alarm events on there. So it does give you that kind of flexibility within the system. And it does allow you to enter in the number plates via a web front end. You don't need to mess around with importing and exporting Excel sheets, so it can be a lot more user-friendly to use within the system. With the HikCentral as well, you also get the benefit of having real-time ANPR results on the control clients on PC and also in the mobile clients as well. So if you have the HikCentral mobile app and you are connected to the server, when you have the camera open in live view, it will actually give you the real-time ANPR results down the side of the mobile app as well. So you get that additional functionality within HikCentral. And as I said, There is an easy-to-use web-based list management system within HikCentral. So you'd log into the web front end of the server itself, and you can then go in and add it in your plate. You can put in person's name, enter in the license plate, and that's then added into the list on the actual system itself, which we are going to take a look at shortly as well. There's also advanced event linkage, so you can trigger PEZs when a vehicle on the block list, for example, is detected. You can trigger multiple alarm outputs, and you can send events through to multiple control clients as well, or multiple users within that. You can also do combined events, so you could have, for example, the ANPR trigger, and if the ANPR camera is being triggered and the line crossing on a secondary camera is triggered, it will then send an alarm event to the monitoring station that's running HikCentral within that as well. So you can do combined events where one event can arm another event within the system. Using this solution as well also allows you the ability to link to access control systems. So if you're using the Hikvision access control units, you can have the ANPR camera actually open doors when a specific vehicle is detected, or if it's someone that you don't want to enter the premises or there's been issues with them in the past, you can actually set it so it will actually put the building into lockdown if you wanted to, or it would lock specific doors within the building as well. You can do those links with the access points using HikCentral within that solution as well. So as I said, with the web-based management of HikCentral, and this is just an example of actually adding a new vehicle into an existing plate list that's on the system. So you can see we've got 3 different lists down the left-hand side. We've got a visitor list, a loud list, and a block list. And then I've entered my license plate number at the top. I've also entered my name and my contact details there. And that's as simple as it gets to add in a vehicle by the web client for HikCentral. This is perfect if you're needing to have multiple users be able to add and remove vehicles to the system, so long as their user account's being given those permissions during the configuration stages of the actual server itself. You can also set up multiple vehicle lists as well. So you can see I've got 3 set up on this screenshot, but you can actually add in multiple vehicle lists, and those can either link to a single ANPR camera, or you can link to multiple ANPR cameras, and even across multiple remote sites that don't actually have to be local on the same network as the server. So it gives you that flexibility depending on what the requirements are for the site that you're looking at for the system. It's also a nice and easy to use simple search when it comes to the control client. So you can type in a partial number plate or a full number plate. You can search between specific times, and it will give you those times that the actual vehicle's been detected on the system itself. So you can see it's detected my vehicle on different times on the actual camera itself, and it's listed those and then given a capture of when that vehicle's been detected by the ANPR camera as well on the system. You can also generate different vehicle counting reports, so you can actually see how many vehicles have entered the premises or been detected by the camera, and this can be manually generated reports, or you can actually configure it to email automatically the reports of vehicles that have been detected per day, per week, or per month, depending on the requirements with the system. We've then also got the advanced alarms, so we can set up license plate matched, mismatched events on the system, or if we're using the TCM ANPR cameras, we can actually set up a vehicle type matched event. So if we want to be notified on specific vehicle types, as long as you're using the TCM ANPR cameras, which are the higher end cameras, it will actually send through the additional information within the system on there. We've also got our different linkage actions that you can see there, so we can link alarm outputs, we can trigger recording, we can even link the access points for the doors for access control, or we can trigger our alarm events to go through to the different users or different email addresses depending on how we need it configured for the end client for them to use on the system. Darren has asked, a vehicle count, can you get this to show on digital signage if you are getting up to capacity? So there is a system where you can use a digital sign with the HikCentral platform, but it's used in the parking management solution. I am going to show that after this section of the standard ANPR solution. We're going to take a look at how you can actually have your capacity for your car park show on the screen as well. So within HikCentral, you can have the real-time ANPR results displayed at the HikCentral mobile app, and then also on the desktop control client. So you can see the plates as they're being detected. They will chit up down the right-hand side of the actual control client itself as they're being detected on the system. So what I'll do now is I'll just load up the web front end of our ANPR system through HikCentral that we've got here. So this is the new HikCentral 2.0, so the initial homepage is different. We have seen in the past with the old versions of HikCentral, so this is using the new user interface for the system itself. So if we go into resource management, you can see we've got our ANPR camera added at the top there. And if I go into our menu down the left-hand side and then go into our vehicle section, we've got a few different options in here. So we've got our basic settings for vehicles. So this is to do with your fuzzy plate search. So to help identify when a letter or character is being misread on an ANPR camera, you can actually add in a fuzzy plate search, which will show those that have been filtered out by the system or misread, possibly by the algorithm. So you can actually still get those and show up on your searches within HikCentral. So if we go into our vehicle management section, so this is where we can set up our different plate lists within the HikCentral platform itself. So you can see we've got a visitor list, an allowed list, and a block list already set up. To create a new list, we can click on add at the top. I'm just going to call this dynamic webinar. I can set a color for the plate list, so I'm just going to give it green. And if we're using parking management with the barriers, we can actually set this up using the open barrier, the entrance and exit rules. But we're going to come on to that shortly. So we're just going to add this in as a standard ANPR list. So you can see we've got that added in. I can go to add, type in a number plate, put in the vehicle type. If you wanted to, and these will actually show when the vehicle's detected because HikCentral knows that you've put in that information. TCM ANPR cameras will actually be able to tell what type of vehicle it is, so those will automatically generate those additional information within that. The undercarriage picture, this is for use with the UVSSS. And what that will do is for under vehicle management, so you can actually take a picture using either a small speed bump, or you can actually, which is a portable system, or you can have an inbuilt system for a barrier entrance. So in the security guard's office, they will actually get a picture of the underside of the vehicle. So this is great for high security areas, such as army bases, using the system where you can actually see that come through on the control client. And this will allow you to upload a standard undercarriage picture of that vehicle, so there is a reference point to see if anything's been changed or there's something that's not quite right underneath the vehicle on the system. We can also enter in the owner's name, so this is just going to be Nathan's vehicle. I'm going to put the last name, it's mine. You can also link a person list, so if you've got persons uploaded for access control within HikCentral, you can actually link the vehicles to the access control person within this page as well, so you don't have to manually enter in these details. They can be automatically populated or pulled in from your persons list on HikCentral already within that. To click on add there, so I've already got this plate added in on another list, so I'm just going to change it to that one, and then click on add. So it's added in an additional license plate onto the dynamic webinars list on there. And if we go into our allow list, you can see I've already got my license plate already added in, and we can go in and add in another one nice and easily within the actual system itself. So I don't actually have to fill in the user's name, I can just enter in the license plate. So it's nice and easy to edit that, and if I want to delete it, I can just go ahead and delete that out, so long as I've got permission from my user account in order to be able to do that. Now when it comes to the events, so this is just the actual plate list. To configure the actual events itself, depending on your plate list, we need to go into event and alarm, and if we click on add to create a new alarm linkage, go to vehicle, which is our source type down the left hand side, and then we've got our different types of triggering events. So we can select it to be a license plate matched event or a mismatched event. So we're just going to have this set as a matched event. We've got our ANPR camera there, so that's the source of where this event's going to come from, and this is the vehicle list that we want to select. So if a vehicle is on this list and it's matched on the list, we can have that trigger an event such as opening the barrier. So if I select the allowed list and also the dynamic webinar list, we can then action this event. So if I go to add linkage action, I can link an alarm output, click on add, go use the same ANPR camera, but it can actually trigger any alarm output on any Hikvision device that's added to the same HikCentral system. It doesn't have to be the same device. So if you've got, for example, an intercom system, you can trigger that through the ANPR being detected on the system. So you can actually use the door controller relays from access control system, from an intercom system, depending on what's needed for the site. So I'm just going to select alarm output 1 on this and click on add, and then whether or not I want the alarm output to automatically clear or to manually clear, but I'm just going to allow this to automatically clear the alarm output after 15 seconds. And I can also trigger an alarm to trigger through to different users as well, or to pop up your control client, or you can actually have it pop up on a smart wall as well. If you're using a video wall that's being managed by the platform as well, you can do that. But we just want this happening in the background. So if the vehicle's detected, the alarm output is triggered to open the barrier on the system. So I can click on add there, and that's added into that event. So now if I go back into our vehicle list, as the event's actually set up to the list itself, you don't have to change any settings. You can just go in and add in your additional vehicles, remove them, anything that you want with those lists. Because the event's already set up, you can just go in and edit these and it will still work within the system. So this is easier when it comes to management, where you've got administrators that need to regularly update their vehicle lists. They can log in to the web front end of the server from wherever they are. If it's set up for remote access, the actual server itself support forwarded, they can be, for example, in a different country and edit the plate lists. And that can be done from multiple PCs as well within HikCentral. So it gives you that flexibility within that. And a lot more people are preferring this kind of management for the ANPR camera systems, especially with the new HikCentral all-in-one workstation that makes it a lot more cost effective. And there is the value of the time being saved versus the cost of the actual unit. But there is now a newer, cheaper way of being able to achieve this with HikCentral all-in-one workstation as well. So there isn't that extra cost that we'd normally see there. It is more limited with the costs. What we can also do is, if we go into our control client, you can see down the right hand side, I've got the real-time plate captures showing from the vehicles that have been triggered. And we've also got a no plate detected when it hasn't been able to read the license plate on a vehicle. Within that, what we can also do is, if I go into vehicle search in investigation, you can see I've searched my license plate there. But if I bring out our different search options, we can search. So if a license plate hasn't been read correctly by the camera or it's been obscured, we can search for those vehicles. Or we can just search for part of the license plate number. If we've entered in the owner's details, we can actually search for the owner of the vehicle within here. So there's a lot of different search functionalities that you can actually do through the HikCentral control clients. So I'm just going to search for NJ, and you can see it's brought up the different NJ plates that have been detected today. And then set this to the last 7 days. Click on search again. You can see there's a lot more plates that have been detected within the actual system itself, and you can see within that there as well. So you can click through on the different plates and show those coming through within the search parameters that you've entered into the control client itself. What you can also do is you can actually do your vehicle reporting within the actual system itself. So if we go into vehicle analysis, select our ANPR camera, and then we can configure it to search for a weekly report or a monthly report. So if we search for a weekly report, current week, and click on generate report, you can see the amount of vehicles that have entered or been detected by our ANPR camera on each specific day of the week. So you can see on Monday there was 260 vehicles, Tuesday there was 240, there was a dip on Wednesday at 225, and then there was a peak on Thursday at 272. So you can generate all these different reports through the control client for HikCentral as well on there. So it does give you those added features and functionalities as opposed to a standalone ANPR system. And it also gives you greater control of your vehicle lists and a lot easier management of those as well. So you're not having to mess around exporting and importing your Excel sheets. You can give the user the IP address of the server, a user account for them to log into, which you can actually say so it only shows the vehicle management page, and they can go in and add in or remove vehicles as they need to on the system as well. So it gives you that flexibility as well as that additional control for the system. So that was a look at the standard ANPR functions through HikCentral and the additional abilities when it comes to your vehicle lists and how easy it is to manipulate those and add in or remove additional vehicles as you need to on the system. Now what we're going to take a look at is the HikCentral parking management. So this is using the entrance and exit module for HikCentral, and this gives you even more additional functionalities and actually allows you to have, as Darren mentioned earlier, you can actually have a display showing the number of spaces left that are in the car park, as well as being able to manually control barriers for a gatehouse for additional security. There's a lot of different functionality that gets brought in with this module, which we're going to take a look at now. So within the web client of HikCentral, this is just going to be a brief overview of the solution, then we're actually going to look at setting up a car park on our demo system here today as well, so I can walk through that with you on the system. So you can see on the web client we've got a capacity of 10,000 parking spaces, but there's only actually 9,882 that are available at that time on the system. And it also shows you the overtime parking as well, so you can configure it so if a vehicle overstays, that can trigger an event on the system to alert the security guards or the moderators of the car park itself. So there's different ways that you can actually have this configured within the system. So as we looked at with the standard ANPR camera solution with HikCentral using your standard ANPR licenses, you can have your ANPR cameras linked back to your main central server and then have your different clients connected into that. And that would give you the ability to have real-time alarm notifications to your operators via email, via the mobile clients and also desktop clients. And it also gives you the ability to search back at the different vehicle records of vehicles that have been detected on the actual system through the control clients. Now, when you use the parking management solution using the entrance and exit module, the topology is slightly different. So within HikCentral, you can use the all-in-one workstation, or you can use the dedicated server, depending on how large the HikCentral system is. So it is scalable from small systems, for example, a small car park where there is only an entrance and an exit, all the way up to multiple entrance and exits and multiple different sites. So with this, we can link up to an LED display. So this can show the license plate of the vehicle or the person's name as the vehicle is detected, or it can show the number of free parking spaces for the car park. You can then link it into your barrier. So you can use one of the Hikvision barriers for car parks, or you can link into a third-party barrier using the alarm output relays on a device, or using an access controller or an intercom door station. You can link that through the system as well, and you'd also have the same on your exit as well for the unit. So within the actual entrance and exit rules for the vehicles, for the barriers themselves, you can have it set so the barriers are only operational or automatically opened depending on the vehicle during specific hours, and then at night time you can have it so the barriers don't open on the system. You can also have a car park full alert, so the barrier won't open when the car park is full, so it does allow you to control the amount of spaces that are available on the system. And you can also allow the different vehicle lists as well to be linked into this if you needed. For example, staff access to the car park, you can change those settings depending on what's needed for the requirements as well. So within this, we can have frequently appeared vehicle alarms. So if a vehicle's been detected to so many times, depending on the threshold you set, you can actually have that trigger an alarm on HikCentral and have that trigger through to your different operators or through to email alerts as well. And you can also configure a parking overstay event. So this is if a vehicle has stayed in the car park over a set period of time. You can have that alert through to your operators on the actual system itself. You can also configure the LED screens. So there's a couple of different options when using LED screens. There is the Hikvision LED screen, which can be mounted externally for use with the system, and it's added via the network into HikCentral. There is also a customized version of HikCentral which integrates the LED synergy signs, which you can contact ourselves for more information regarding. There's a wide variety of different LED signs in different sizes to meet the requirements for the specification of the site, which can link into the system and display the specific information that you want to be able to display on that screen. So it could be the person's name, the actual license plate number, it could be the number of free parking spaces that are actually in the car park as well. So it is configurable to meet the actual requirements of the site itself on there. For the barrier itself, it can work in two different modes. So you can have it set when operator gets an alert through onto their control client. If, for example, they're sat in a gatehouse, it will come up on the control client with a capture of the vehicle and say, do you want to allow the vehicle into the car park or in through the barrier? So you can have an operator or security guard manually be able to operate the barrier and they have control of the system. Alternatively, you can have it set to automatically open the barrier to all vehicles, set to only open the barrier on if the vehicle's actually added to one of the vehicle lists. Dependent on the system and the site, it allows you to be able to configure that to meet the needs of the actual system itself. So these are the main differences between the standard ANPR licenses and the car parking management solution with the entrance and exit module. So for the car park, you can have one car park per HikCentral system, and that can have 8 entrance/exits per server that the system's adding up and managing. And it also gives you the additional functionality of being able to have in the LED screens added to the system as well for that. So the standard solution uses the ANPR camera, the 7-line ANPR camera with your standard HikCentral ANPR 1-channel license, and that would allow you to be able to receive the events through, control the gates and barriers through HikCentral. When using the parking management system, you can link up video intercoms to the system as well as the DS-TVL 224, which is the Hikvision display screen, which can be mounted outside, and it can show a wide variety of different information on the system depending on what's required by the actual client on site. So it is versatile enough to be customized to meet the needs of the system there as well. There's now the HikCentral all-in-one workstation, which is a hardware unit that comes pre-installed with the licenses as well as the actual hardware itself. So this is up to 32 channels of cameras that can be added into the system, and it has the licenses for the entrance and exit management, and this will allow you to add up to 4 ANPR cameras to the unit. We have these in stock from next week, so you'll be able to see those, and there's also a video which I'll attach onto the email I send out after this webinar that covers the HikCentral all-in-one workstation solution for that as well. But what I'll do is I'll switch back over onto our web client, and we'll take a look at the entrance and exit setup for the car park system. So go back to our resource management. You can see I've got 2 additional ANPR cameras added in. So one's an entrance camera and one's an exit, which I've just named on the system. What we then have to do is we actually have to assign our HikCentral license to say that those 2 cameras are ANPR cameras and need to use the ANPR license on the system. So what we do is we go to our maintenance and management along the top, and then go into our license, which might not show on this one, so I'm on local. It's not going to let me, so we'll have to go in a slightly different way. If you're on the local server itself, it will actually give you the additional option, but you can see at the top we do have an option to view the unused licenses there. So you can see we've got our ANPR camera. Only 2 of our 6 licenses are currently enabled, so we can click on configuration and select our ANPR camera entrance and our ANPR camera exit. Assign those as ANPR cameras and save that within there. So you can see now we've got 4 ANPR cameras added to our system. Now what I can do is go into our vehicles section and go to parking lot settings. So you can see I've got a car park set up called Dynamic Building. Our capacity set to 100, so there's 100 parking spaces on this car park that we set up here, and currently there are 0 vacant spaces, so this is the amount of spaces that are currently available. So if I set this to 50, and then the maximum parking duration, so this is what you can actually trigger an event off. If the vehicle stays over 5 hours, we can link an event to this as well. So if I save that, now I'm just going to delete that off there, and we're going to add in our entrance and our exit cameras. So if we click on the plus icon there, this is going to be the entrance camera, and the capture unit is going to be ANPR entrance for this. So when using the parking management solution, you do have to use at least 2 ANPR cameras. So even if the entrance and exit is through the same area, you do have to use 2 separate physical ANPR cameras to be able to link this in there. You can also link in your access control device or video intercom device as well. And go for the barrier control, we're just going to use the capture unit, which is the camera itself, to trigger the barrier. So I can click on add, and that's our entrance camera added. Now I'm also going to add in our exit camera as well. Set that to exit and save that in there as well. So we've got our 2 separate lanes configured on the system there now. If we go to our entry and exit rule, there's a few different options that we've got for our system. So we've got rules for vehicles that are not in the list, and rules for vehicles that are in the list. So the vehicles that I've got for this system aren't on the list, so we're just wanting to be able to have the barrier open automatically when entering and the manual opening for exiting. So the user that's logged in HikCentral will be prompted to manually open the barrier using that configuration. You can also add in an overtime parking report, so you can have a report generated. So if I call this one overstay parking, and I can set this to send over an email when every day at 6 o'clock in the morning, showing the vehicles from the previous day that have overstayed the car parking times within that, and that will send over an Excel sheet with the vehicle plates of those that have actually overstayed within the car park within there. What we also need to do is we need to actually make sure that our road traffic is configured on the cameras themselves. So if we go back into resource management, and if we go on the little remote configuration cog for the cameras, so this is the entrance ANPR camera, we need to ensure that road traffic is enabled for the camera and it's set to notify surveillance center. If it's not set to notify surveillance center, the events won't trigger through into the HikCentral server itself for that. I think my Google Chrome doesn't want to work today, so I'll just use Internet Explorer for this one. Just to enable these. So if we go into our configuration, go into road traffic, then we need to enable it at the top, and then go into our arming schedule and just make sure that Notify Surveillance Center is ticked on the Allow List, Block List, and Others list, or else it won't trigger through into HikCentral. I'm just going to do it for the second camera as well. And road traffic again, enable the area, and then just check to make sure that those are all set. Click Save, and then as long as they're all set, we've actually set up our car park within the web client of HikCentral. So what we can do is we can switch over our control client, and you can see that we've got our up and down arrows with a red dot in the top right, which means there's been changes made to the system. And if we click on that, it will pull in the new system information, which will be the updates that we've done to our car park. So if we go to monitoring and then go to vehicle, you can see that we've got our vehicle screen in there now. If we click on live view, you can see our ANPR entrance camera. You can see our vacant parking space at the top. So we've got 50 parking spaces that are available currently. So now if I trigger this camera, which isn't best for close-up demos like this, so you can see that the vacant parking spaces is now dropped down to 49 on there. It's captured the vehicle. I can hover over with my mouse and see the actual vehicle plate in greater detail, and that's automatically opened the barrier and allowed that vehicle in. I then do the same on the exit camera. Which you can see there has triggered on the actual system, and it's detected as no play because it's dipped down a little bit on the detection, but that has then triggered that on there for that one. So there's a wide variety of different things that you can do with HikCentral. So it does have that flexibility to meet the requirements of the site and to be able to give you those additional controls when they're needed, such as manual control for guards, using barrier control at the bottom so you can see our different entrance and exit. We can open that remotely, or we can set the barriers to remain open if we want to as well on the system. So that was the parking management solution through the HikCentral VMS. I'm just going to run through quickly the TCM ANPR cameras. So these are the more advanced ANPR cameras that are available from Hikvision, and these are UK Police NASP tested as well. So if you have to meet those requirements, you do have to use the TCM ANPR cameras, which are designed for those. And it does give you additional functions, such as being able to analyse what type of vehicle it is, what colour the vehicle is, what vehicle the direction is, and badge recognition for the vehicle as well. These can also be linked to radar units to actually detect the speed of the vehicle as well, with the more advanced TCM ANPR cameras. And these are designed for high speed roads with the TCM cameras. So when a plate's detected, you get additional information through, so the vehicle brand, the vehicle type, and also the vehicle plate, as well as the vehicle colour. So you do get those additional information through on the TCM ANPR cameras. And it will also detect the actual badge, so what brand the vehicle is. So you can see that one's been detected as a Land Rover. And it will also tell whether or not it's what type of vehicle it is, so whether or not it's a car, a van, or a truck. So you can see that motorcycle has actually been detected as a motorcycle by the TCM ANPR camera. Now these do meet the national standard for police with the TCM ANPR cameras, so these can link into DVLA systems using the 𝐂𝐨𝐫𝐸 solution, for example. And we do also have customers that are using those for those kind of solutions. And it will also link into your back-end databases as well, depending on the back offices that you need. And this meets the Home Office ANPR data standards with the TCM ANPR cameras. So if you do have requirements where the site needs the cameras to be able to meet those standards, then you do have to use the TCM ANPR cameras rather than the standard ANPR cameras or the 7-line cameras. So these are designed for the higher end systems where you do need to meet those requirements for the site. So that's a look at the different ANPR solutions that are available from Hikvision, from ourselves. So we've also very active on social media, so please feel free to follow the Dynamic LinkedIn, Facebook and LinkedIn page, as well as our YouTube channel. We are frequently posting on there now, and the recorded version of the webinar will also be uploaded to that as well. If you're leaving the meeting now, if you please fill in the feedback form that will redirect once the webinar closes. I'd be grateful for any feedback that you have, and that will help us to improve these webinars for our customers here as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section now. I know I have answered some as we've been going along, but if there are any other questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section, or you can contact me on the details on the screen there. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found the webinar useful, and I look forward to seeing you on the next webinar next week, which is covering the server-based solutions with our partners 𝐂𝐸𝐸𝐿ogic. So we're going to be taking a look at the different hardware that's available from ourselves with our partners 𝐂𝐸𝐸𝐿ogic next week. So I hope you can join us on that webinar. Well, thank you for joining me today, and I hope you found it useful. Take care. Cheers. Bye.